Hello, everybody. We are back, and with me is Forchie. Hello, Forchie.
Hello, Derek, and hello, everyone.
And we are back with more big questions to answer, and it's really great to be back with you again. First question today: who made God?
Da, 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 da.
This is a good question. If God, here's the thought, right? If God created the universe, who created God?
Whoa.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happens there? Because, we don't know what the answer to that is.
No. And I think what we can probably is fair to say, and is right to say, is that whatever we share comes from a place of conviction of having a faith in Jesus. Both Derek and I are believers. We love Jesus. We love God. We have our faith is the Christian faith. And so our discussion and answers are completely based on that and based on the personal relationship we have with said God.
Yes.
So who made God, Derek?
Well, here's the thing. I suspect that we're looking at it from the wrong direction, and I'll go on to explain what I mean by that.
Okay.
So humans are used to having a beginning and an end. We are born, we have a life, we die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a beginning and an end. Mm-hmm. And most things, like days have beginnings and ends. So we're used to beginnings and ends to mark out time spans. But because God was always in existence, there is a scripture that talks about always was.
Yeah, who was and is to come.
And is to come.
That's Revelation 1:8.
There you go. So that is our basis for assuming that God doesn't follow the rules of human time intervals. And it's really very hard for us as humans because everything does work on a finite time interval in our lives.
Yes.
But God is not like that. Because he's God, he operates on a different rule set to us. So therefore, it's not quite asking the right question, who created God, because God was always there. And as humans, it's kind of mind-boggling to think God was always there and will always be there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of outside of our experience.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on that. I think if God had to be created, then in my mind, he's disqualified himself because he's not powerful enough. Like somehow he just lacks that quality. I think one of the things that I love about God is that he's bigger than me. He is far more powerful than me. He's bigger than me. He knows far more than I would ever know in my lifetime. He understands things a lot more than I will ever understand. And I probably, when the day comes, when the moment comes when I die, I will probably die still having questions that were unanswered or not fully answered, so to speak. I don't think anyone actually gets to the point where, they can say, I've figured this out. And if we do say that, we're probably struggling with a little bit of pride, perhaps. And so for me, the idea that God was never created is crucial to my faith. It's because now I can trust someone. Now I can trust this God about my future because he never ends. It's almost that, I enter tomorrow. He already is there. He's already there. Like there's no tomorrow and there's no yesterday in God's timeline. He is just present. He is Alpha and Omega. I mean, going back to that book of Revelation. So if you don't know what the book of Revelation is, it's the last book in the Bible. Derek referred to it just a moment ago. And there's another great verse describing God again. And he says, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. And basically saying like, I am. If there ever was a beginning, it's me. If there ever is going to be an end, it will be me. Like everything else is in between. It's like right. There's nothing outside of God. Like he is the completion of those things, and I think that's really important. So in the light of that faith and sort of that conviction, trying to answer a question like who made God, I think no one made God. That's what makes him God.
I think as humans, we're inclined to try and understand God on our level. And God just isn't on our level.
Yes.
He's way above that.
Yeah.
And I often use a story which I have learnt since I become a grandfather, which is to watch little children struggling to put their coat and shoes on when they're going outside in bad weather.
Yeah.
And they will not put it on.
Yeah.
They just won't.
Yeah.
And they have no idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which comes in later life, doesn't it? But as adults, we know that if you don't put your shoes on, you don't put your coat on, you're going to get soaking wet when you go outside if it's raining.
Yes.
So but God has that sort of thing with us. He is above our level of understanding. We can pray to him. We can say, well, God, like children can say, please, can you help me put my shoes on or something like that. But that's not the point. The point is, as in prayer, we can ask God about things, but God knows much more than that. So understanding the level that God works at is something that as humans we can often struggle with. And I think Christians struggle with this as well, because they believe if they pray, then God will just make it happen with a magic wand. And it isn't necessarily as simple as that.
No. And also I think someone very cleverly, I don't know, is that a word, cleverly?
Yes.
Cleverly said, God knows the end from the beginning.
Yes.
Right from the beginning, he knows how this is going to end. And I think that those kinds of things really inform your faith. There's another great bit where in the Old Testament where God introduces himself to Moses in Exodus around chapter 3. He says, I am who I am. Say to this people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. So God is giving himself a name, and is one of the first revelations of God's name. And the name that God describes himself is I am. Yeah. And in other words, he describes himself as someone who exists by himself. So just look at it when he does that. If you just look at the context of what's going on, the Israelites, the Jewish people, are slaves to the Egyptians, people who live in Egypt. And the Egyptians create gods.
Yes.
Right? And the Egyptians consider their pharaoh, who is their king, their leader, to be a god. Right? But all of these gods were created. The pharaoh will die one day. And, it'll come to an end, and then another pharaoh replaces him. And so in a world where gods are created by humans, God introduces himself as, no one creates me. I exist on my own. And he describes himself as, I am. I am who I am. And A.W. Tozer, who is a famous Christian author, he says, God has no origin. Origin is a word that can apply only to things created. God is self-existence, and he's written this in his book, The Knowledge of the Holy. So again, it's this idea is that there is no origin. So one day, the iPhone was invented, and it started existing, and then it started evolving to, I think we're up to iPhone 16 now. One day, a telephone was invented, or a computer was invented. It started existing. And so it had an origin. Someone created it. If we say, when we ask the question about God, he would not be God. He would not be the creator through whom all things were created if he himself had to be created. So there is no origin. He is a self-existing God. He is I am, one who exists by himself.
And another side to this question is they're saying they're linking this to the universe.
Yes.
And they're saying, well, the universe surely was always in existence.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't follow from the fact that God has been in existence forever and will be in existence forever.
Yeah.
Because it says in the Bible that God created the universe. And so in Genesis, that's kind of where it all started from.
Yeah.
And so the fact that God was in existence before the universe and will be in existence after the universe tells us that actually the universe follows more human rules. Godlike rules maybe, but certainly it has a beginning, and the way things are going, it may even have an end as well. But the point is that it does not follow God's existence rules.
Absolutely. Whether you are someone who believes the literal reading of Genesis, the first 3 chapters of Genesis, that God actually created the world as in the earth. We're not talking about the multiverse or the universe. We're talking about earth. That's what we're referring to in Genesis. Whether you believe that it was done in 7 days, 7 actual days, or you think it's a span of time and it's a more poetic interpretation, whatever you believe in, the thing that you hopefully do agree on is that God actually made it.
Yes, the takeaway is
God made it, right? And
however,
the first verse, it opens like this. It says, the Spirit of God was hovering over earth, over the world. So God was already in existence and the world was in chaos. And then God starts to bring order to it. He separates the land and the sea and the water, and he gives its boundaries and sets boundaries. And, he creates, he names day and night and animals and birds and all that. You read the whole story. So I think it's really important that, to understand all this, to acknowledge the truth that God already was there. He was in existence already, and from him and through him. So John chapter 1, the 3 verses, very famously known in the Christian circles is this. It says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. So it's referring, John, who is one of the disciples of Jesus, refers to Jesus as the Word, and the Word through which everything was created, right? So in the beginning, the Word was already there, the Word, as in Jesus and God, obviously. So they were already in existence, and from their existence came everything else. And John is making that connection that through Jesus, he who is eternal, not made, not created. So Jesus didn't start existing when he took on human flesh. Jesus didn't have a birthday where he had an earthly birthday when when that virgin birth happened, which we today celebrate as Christmas, and we remember the birth of Jesus. That was his human, earthly. There was one particular day on earth, but as a person, as the Son of God, he always existed. He took on, I think that's so important, he took on human flesh rather than he started existing. I think that's really important. And through him, everything came. So he wasn't created. And again, his human flesh was put to death, but then he rose again. He came back to life in a transformed new body, which wasn't just the human flesh that we know that will keep dying and keep getting sick. Because we read, in the account of after the resurrection, you read, he was able to walk through walls, which I don't know if any of you have tried.
Not recommended.
I do not recommend. If you are going to try, please wear a helmet.
Yes. And body armor.
And body armor. If you have the joy of having little children around your house, you know that feeling of walking into a door when the door is still shut. And so, we know these things. We cannot actually walk through doors and walls if we were still in our human flesh. So Jesus, again, has this beautiful, transfigured, transformed body where he, is back to life and he continues his existence. But his human flesh was put to death. And then, so hopefully that makes sense, that he was always there. God was always there. Jesus always existed. And from there, everything was created.
Okay, yeah. I was just going to open and close an issue quickly.
Yeah.
As you were talking about Christmas.
Yeah.
Don't be led into the side alley of arguing that Christmas, that Jesus was not born on the 25th of December, because actually there's no evidence for when Jesus was born.
Correct.
And the thing is, we like to celebrate it then. And some people say, well, of course it was a sacred day for heathens or something.
Pagan
and I think,
festival.
hang on a minute, it's got nothing to do with it. When it's Christmas Day, I am remembering Jesus' birth.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who was, what else is it? It's got nothing to do with it. The point is, that is when we remember that Jesus was born. Okay? It's any day of the year's got issues. And any day of the year's got a 1 in 365 chance of being the correct day.
Yeah.
However, we don't know, so we choose to remember it then. I'm going to shut that down at that point.
The Bible doesn't actually give us a date.
No, it doesn't. So I'm going to shut that one down there. But don't start going about it. It's not. That's not the point.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the next question? Okay. So we've got, there's no actual proof of God's existence. Here we go. The burden of proof lies with those making the claim that God exists, it says. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence.
Yeah.
That's clever. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The lack of compelling empirical evidence for God's existence weakens the case for belief. Well, there you go. I'm going to pull the same argument that I did with the last one.
Okay.
And say that humans are, you're reading it the wrong way here. Because the burden of proof lies with those making the claim that God exists. Okay. I believe God exists.
Yes.
And the way that the question is working seems to think that somewhere somebody's going to find a pot or a stone or a brick or something in archaeology that proves that God exists.
Yeah.
But God's not about things like that.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking for proof that God exists, you've got to look into those who are following him and the way in which he influences their lives to whatever extent.
Yes.
Because I think that's where your evidence is going to come from. You're not going to find an archaeological pot or fragment of bone or something that's going to say, "Oh yeah,
God exists."
It's not. It's not. It's not like that. It's not about that. And I think that people have to understand there is evidence to suppose that Jesus existed, and a lot of the things that we see in the Bible, there is evidence for. In fact, I think there's increasing evidence for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
As time goes on, people find more things that link back to biblical references.
Yeah.
And so, given that, I think that there is evidence for that side of it. But actually, God himself... I think you've got to look into the evidence of people's hearts. Hearts is not what I mean, but the way in which people operate as Christians, and not all Christians are perfect. Let's be the first one to say that. You can look at me; I'm not perfect at all. But the point is that's where you'll see the evidence. Okay, and there are lots of Christians in history who have been great advocates and have been good examples also of God's effect on their lives. But there have also been some that have been awful because there's the human nature involved in that. It's not just pure God.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's a great point. The biggest proof for God's existence is the people who believe in him. Because if he did not exist, that will be to say that there are millions of fools walking around this world. Right. So the biggest proof is that there is a tangible, concrete change in people's hearts and those who believe, because he lives in them. Like, God lives in the hearts of those who follow him, those who love him. And we say Christians, so Jesus followers, whatever you want to use, the terminology, is that God lives among his people and in their hearts through his Holy Spirit. I think the archaeological evidence and the bit of pottery and the inscription on the stone and all the rest of it, what it does prove, because I think it does a really, really important job, is it proves that the biblical narrative is true, right? The biblical narrative and the biblical stories and all the different things that tell us about God, that teach us about God, the biblical events, those things are true. So if, for example, here is an example, right? So there was in 1993 in northern Israel, they found what they call the Tel Dan stele. It refers to the house of David, the king of Judah, confirms that David was a historical figure, refuting that, that he was a myth or he wasn't real, blah, blah, blah. There's actual evidence to David. Now, if the existence of David can be proved, and it's proven, now we have actual evidence of it, it now gives credibility to what David and all his life and what he has learned and said about God that we know through the Bible. So that's credibility. And there's other different examples that we can come up with, even about Jesus's life, Jesus's crucifixion. There's letters that we have found from around that time that talk about the people who follow Jesus, the Jesus followers, that talks about these guys who are crazy and they wanted to, it talks about they found a stone that had an inscription of Pontius Pilate, under whose authority, Jesus was put to death. These don't prove the existence of God, but they prove the biblical narrative. They prove the biblical events and the people who lived among. This is not just made up stories. These are not myths. These are real people who lived real lives long before us. And some of these evidences, about they've discovered the walls of Jericho that fell. There's tunnels they've discovered, and all these different things. They prove that there is a story that the Bible has been telling us for thousands and thousands of years. But now there's actual archaeological evidence for all of these stories. It's not about God himself. No. But it's about the book
but God's
that tells
followers
us about God.
And Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so these are... So I think... So what is the proof? Well, there's a great verse that in the New Testament, Saint Paul, who was originally persecuting the Christian church, then meets Jesus, has an amazing encounter with Jesus, gets his life turned around. He writes in one of his letters to the early churches, he says, "You, the people in the church, the people who now believe in Jesus because of his message," he says, "you are my letter of recommendation." As in, you are the living proof of this whole message, that this message is true, that this message can change lives. This message leads you from destruction to eternal life. This message is, powerful and can change everything, change your perspective, change your worldview. All of this. The proof of that is you. You are my letter of recommendation. It's like he brings it down to people. And I love that. And I love what you said, Derek, is that the proof is, what is the proof for God? Well, look around you.
Yeah.
Look at the fruits of the church, the Christians around you. Look at the teachings of Jesus, and look at the people who are genuinely following it.
Yeah, genuinely. That's
genuinely
the biggie,
following it. They're like people who love their enemies, people who pray and bless those who persecute them. People who will even go to death. Even today, you look at a place like Nigeria, which is one of the most dangerous places for Christians to live. Yet, those beautiful Nigerian people don't give up on their faith.
No,
they would go to death That's a proof.
Indeed.
To me, that's far more powerful than a bit of crockery
Yes.
that we've dug up somewhere.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
look at this guy. He's being threatened to death. Yet there's something in him that says, nah, I know what's true. I know this God.
Another little thing that I want to unpack very quickly, or maybe, I don't know, we'll see how it goes, is the word belief. Because really what we're talking about is a belief. We have a belief that God is real. Now, you can argue for and against a lot, but for us, we have a knowledge of God living in us and guiding us. So I think it would be very hard for someone to come along and say, well, God can't exist because, to me, because I'll go, yes, but I've got something more powerful. That personal experience trumps anything that you could possibly have in terms of an argument that goes all the way around the houses to try and prove. And I think at the end of the day, everybody believes in something. You know, you might believe that, you know, the sun's going to come up in the morning, all of that sort of stuff. But at the end of it all, you have to have personal experience of what you believe to be correct. And most people are driven by that personal experience. And that's the personal experience of knowing God. Knowing God personally, I remember seeing on some document a little while ago, but a long time ago. But knowing God personally is what makes me believe in God.
Yeah.
It might be difficult for someone who's not got that experience to believe in God.
Yeah.
All I would say is that God tells us that all we have to do is to pray to him, to ask him to give us that experience, that personal experience of God. And it's different for everybody. Nobody gets it the same way as anybody else.
That's right.
But the point is, you know it when you get it.
Absolutely.
So,
because it will change your life.
Indeed. So maybe you want to talk about that
Absolutely. I think if there was anything that we can, in trying to answer these two questions of who made God and what's his proof, well, the short answer is find out for yourself. And then get to know him. The invitation is there, and you might have already heard this in our other previous episodes or in other things, other content that we put out. The invitation is Jesus stands by the door of your heart knocking, and he says, it's a promise, anyone who opens the door and lets him in, he will come in. Obviously, he's painting a picture. He's giving us a picture for us to work with. He's saying, look, if you will welcome me in, if you will say, come, Lord Jesus, come into my life, come into this heart, and allow him to come in, he says he will. He will come in and he will sit down and spend time, and then your life will begin to change. Things will start to make sense. You will have that joy in the midst of trials. You'll have peace that makes no sense. You'll have all of these things. You'll have the transformational power of the Holy Spirit in you. All this begins by starting that journey with a simple request to Jesus. And it goes something as simple as this. It can be as simple as, Jesus, if you are real, would you reveal yourself to me? Something as simple, one line. And if you've never done it, I would like to dare you to do it. Because I think it will be one of the best things you'd ever say. So what the best one-liner you could ever come up with is, Jesus, if you are real, just with a genuine, humble heart, just say, Jesus, if you are real, would you reveal yourself to me? These two guys have been yapping about you for half an hour, and I want to know you the way that Derek and Forchie know you. Just say that simple prayer and see what happens. See what happens.
And I prayed that prayer many, many years ago.
Yes.
And I have to say, it changed my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so here we are. Who made God? What is the proof? Well, our short answer is God exists outside our finite understanding of time. So what makes him God is the fact that he is outside of time, never created, and that's how he introduces himself. I am. And what is the proof? Well, in this very moment, Derek and I are proof to you, but just look around the millions of people who will go to their death even to follow this God, to follow this Jesus.
And if you're not perfect and you're saying, well, it's not for me, I'm not perfect, we're not perfect. And I don't think I ever will be perfect, but God shows me ways to improve
Absolutely
how I am. So don't just go, oh, it can't possibly be for me, I'm not. No, it's not like that. It's not about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So there you go. That's a final thought.
There you go. I hope you've enjoyed this, and there's more coming. If you enjoyed it, let us know. You can email us at connect@prayerhouse.uk, or also another way if to spread the word is to send this to someone who you think might be asking these questions, and maybe this might help them. And that's another great way to support what we're doing as well.
We'd love it if you did that. Very happy about that. Okay. So stick with us. We've got plenty more coming at you, content-wise.
Yes.
And we've got 3 whole pages of questions here. So we've got plenty more coming. So why not listen to us again when you've finished listening to this one? We've got plenty more coming up for you. So check us out.
Take care now. Bye-bye.